Jessii Vee, and welcome back to another episode of Everybody Has a Story. Today I have my mom with me.
Hi everyone!
Because today's video is incredibly special to her because it's about her longtime best friend and her siblings.
One of my best friends, Linh, I went to high school with her, so I've known her most of my life. Just probably within the past few months, I found out that she has an incredible story that is just mind-boggling what she went through, and she was telling me about it and how it affected her family and her siblings, and I was like, what? I've known you all my life and I never knew this about you. So I was just like blown away. I said, Linh, you have to tell this story. And she said, well, my brother and my sister already have. They've both written books and we'll talk to you about those books as well. I said, you've just got to come on my daughter's channel and talk about this because this will affect a lot of people. So I'm really excited. Not only did she come and talk about her story, but her sister Vanessa and her brother Tuan came as well. And we're just so excited and so grateful to them for their time and for sharing their story. So I can't wait for you to hear it.
Yes, this story is really emotional and absolutely amazing, and I think you guys will really enjoy it. Here you go.
My name is Linh, and this is my brother Tuan and my sister Vanessa, and we're here to tell our story of how we escaped Vietnam. When the communists took over, anyone that has worked for the American will soon to be either sent to refugee camp or they find some way to get rid of you. And my father worked for the American. He was a translator, and we had to leave. My dad and I, we left first, and it was a big secret. I didn't know that we were leaving until I came home from school that day, and it was strange walking into the house. My parents were crying, they were praying, and I didn't know what happened. The next thing I knew was my mom packed clothes for my dad and I don't remember she said goodbye. I was just so shocked. I mean, at 11 years old, you don't know anything. You came home, see a parent crying. Then the next thing we knew, we got into my uncle's moped and he took it to this, it was nighttime. It was in a deserted place. We saw people there and we had to be super, super quiet. My dad had to carry me out because the boat couldn't come in. And so he had to carry me on his shoulders to go out in the middle of the sea to get on this boat. And that's how our journey started. I still didn't know what we were doing, or nothing was said to me. We were in the boat for 5 days, very little food, no water. So each of us were giving a little bit of water, squeeze some lemon into to dilute the saltiness from the ocean, and that's what we had. It was a fishing boat. It was a very small boat, and about, I think, 50 or 60 of us. I remember one night we had a really, really big storm, and all I could see was the sky and the ocean was the same color. It was jet black. And my dad and I were lying on the tip of the boat, and all I could remember, my dad was saying, you gotta pray, you gotta pray. And on the 5th day, the engine of the boat died. If there was another storm, we would be dead. Luckily, there was an American oil ship and they saw us and they rescued us. Then they brought it to Malaysia, went to a refugee camp. We were there for 2 or 3 months, and we had all the ambassadors from all over the world that came in. And remember, my dad had to fill the application to pick what country he wants. He chose Canada to be his home. And at this point, I don't even know what happened. Like, he didn't tell me, Linh, we had to escape because if they find out that I was American, they have to go, go to the refugee camp. Nothing was said. All this time that we left Vietnam to where we stayed at the refugee camp, I have no idea what we're doing or why we're even there. And so we were there at the refugee camp for about 3 months, and then we went to Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and we were there for I think a month. Then we flew from there to Canada, and our first home was in Saskatoon. The Canadian government was very kind. They opened their arm and welcomed us, and they gave us a home. And he had $10 to his pocket. He worked 2-3 jobs. His plan was to work to save the money so he can bring my siblings and my mom over, but that would take a long time because I know you have to have a certain amount. It would take like 4 or 5 years, and my mom didn't want to wait that long. Anyway, so my mom and my brother came a year after. They went the same route. I'll let Tuan tell you about his journey.
I was 6 at the time when this when I escaped, and I came home from school one day. Things were all packed up, ready to go, and so my recollection is much less than Linh because I was so much younger. But that night, my mom grabbed my two older sisters, Lan and Luann, and myself. We had our bags packed, and they drove us to the pier, you know, and we got onto the boat. And as I understand it, I think my mom had wanted to take Vanessa, who was 4 at the time, but the captain of the boat, I think, said that he thought that she was too young for various reasons, whether it was too dangerous for her or that she might make noises, but he kind of pretty much refused to take her, so my mom had no choice but to leave her behind with my aunts and uncles and cousins in Vietnam, with my grandmother as well. Me, my 2 sisters, my mom, and my aunt, and my 2 cousins escaped by boat. So similar to Lynn's story, we got in the boat. I was 6, so, you know, I don't have an in-depth recollection, but I do remember, you know, being thirsty. My mom had packed whatever she could carry on her, clothes and some crackers and some jugs of water, and I remember being really thirsty in the middle of the day, you know, because we had to kind of, in a sense, hoard what we had, because everyone had to kind of protect their property, because there were 60 other people on this fishing boat, and you just didn't know what kind of situation other people were in. So my mom would only allow us to drink basically a cap of water at night, so that when everyone was asleep, and that's what we were kind of resorted to, and then crackers to eat during the day. And I remember the boat taking us into the middle of the sea, and we had to switch to another boat. And I remember there was a plank that was laid down between the 2 boats, and I remember crossing this plank, and the water was just pitch black, and I remember being really scared, but you didn't have a choice. You just had to go and cross. And so we went onto this other boat, and it took us kind of the rest of the way. At one point we landed on an island to either to rest or for another boat to come take us. My one sister, Lan, and I think my aunt got separated from us, and we didn't know where they were. So at one point the family was separated. There was seemingly gunshots that came along, so everyone ran to the boat to escape, and in the process of running, our family got separated. We didn't know where Lan was. We didn't know. She might have been left behind in the island. She might have been killed. We didn't know. But by the time the boat took us to another island, we discovered that Lan was on another boat, and we kind of reunited then. So that was quite a frightening situation. Similar to Lynn, about day 5, our engine on our boat also died as well. So we were kind of adrift in the sea. At one point, the boat sprung a leak. My mom and my aunt kind of took over and started kind of taking some pails and started dumping water out of the boat, and an American boat came along, thankfully. It rescued us just in the nick of time, and we all kind of boarded this massive American ship. First thing apparently that I asked for was some milk. I was really thirsty. Those are the things that I remember, things that kind of meant something to me. But they took us to Malaysia, a refugee camp in Malaysia, and we stayed there for about 4 months. We would line up every day for food, for breakfast, lunch, dinner. I remember going to school at the refugee camp. Every Friday we get a cookie. Again, at the age of 60, you remember the important things, right? You know, that's what we did for 4 months, and then we got word that my dad was sponsoring us over to Canada, and we left. So we left the refugee camp. We landed in Saskatoon, where my sister Lynn and my dad was. You know, we're finally reunited. We escaped in 1981. Lynn escaped in 1980. Like Lynn said, my dad, my mom both worked very hard to provide food, shelter, clothes for us. We didn't have much, but we had enough. We had food, clothes, and shelter. And then 1985, Vanessa and my grandmother flew over from Vietnam. We sponsored them over, and so basically 1985 was when we were officially, the whole family was together.
So my story, oh my goodness, where do I begin? So I was 4 at the time, and being 4, you don't really have a good sense of what's going on. When my dad left, I was 3, and my mom to this day still don't believe me. I kind of remember them leaving. I knew something was going on. I couldn't put my finger on it, and so I remember being really upset. My mom leaving, as Tuan said, they left in the middle of the night, so I didn't know, and there was no talk about it, right? So you have to remember, you're escaping a communist country, and so everything's very hush-hush. It wasn't like, you know how you plan for a vacation where it's months in the coming, and you plan where you're gonna go and how you're gonna get there and what you're gonna do. Like literally these things are happening within weeks, if not days, and so it's very, very last minute, and it's very rushed. But for me, I remember waking up, and so like most families, you have a routine. You get up, you brush your teeth, you do your thing, and then you go to school, whatever your routine is. I remember waking up in the morning, and my family wasn't there. Only my grandma was there. So again, just for context, we lived with my aunt and uncle and their family. It's a 4-story house. So we got up, and it was just grandma and I. It was different, but I didn't think anything of it. And so I just thought, you know, they're out. They're out and about. At that time, there wasn't no refrigeration, so you shop for each meal. And the shops opened very, very early. So I just thought, mom and aunt and all of them were out shopping. So I didn't think too much of it. We all went to the same school, and usually we would all walk together. And so on this day, I was by myself. I don't remember asking my grandma where my mom or my siblings were. I just, being 4, right? So I went to school fully expecting to see them. They weren't there. Again, you kind of notice that, but you don't put too much emphasis into it. You don't think, oh my God, where are they? And then I went home and I asked my grandma where everyone was. And grandma told me they were gone to Canada. I knew of Canada because I knew kind of conceptually that's where my dad and Linh were, but I didn't know what Canada was. I mean, we didn't travel abroad. You don't know there are other places aside from our home. And so my grandma told me that, but I didn't really understand what that meant. And then she said they're not coming back. And as the days and the weeks and the months went by, you just stop asking. I adjusted to life back home, and there's a lot of details in the books, and hopefully you have an opportunity to read it. Communication back at that time. It's not in today's environment where everything is, at your fingertip. We didn't have iPhones back then, we didn't have internet. When they escaped, months went on without knowing what the heck happened. So I think when dad left, mom didn't know for the longest time
Months.
Right?
Months.
If they had made it or they died at sea. Eventually when mom and Luan and Lan and Tuan, reunited with dad and Linh in Saskatoon, there was communication. Letters were written and there were phone calls, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But again, going back to communist country, you have to be very careful with what you say in writing and over the phone because everything was being monitored. Every so often, we would receive a package from Canada. So mom and dad would send, presents, so to speak, and it included anything from clothing to like treats. So chocolate back home wasn't, it was only available to the rich. So, mom and dad used to send chocolate home, and so they were a treat. And they used to send pictures home as well, and it was 2 ways. So my aunt and uncle would send pictures over to my family, and then they in turn would send pictures of them back. So that's how we kept in touch and kind of kept to know what each other looked like as we got older. Anyhow, so fast forward 4 years later, my grandma and I were finally told that we would be traveling to Canada to reunite with our family. So that was super exciting. Although again, at that time, I didn't really know what that meant. I'm 8 now, right? So I've lived at home with my grandma and my family back home for 4 years. It was the only life that I knew. So I remember just being very scared of leaving the only world and environment that I knew. Long story short, we flew over to Canada, and that was a journey in itself, and ultimately reunited with my family. When dad came to pick me up, it had been such a long journey leaving Vietnam to come to Canada. Ultimately, at some point, I fell asleep and I woke up and my dad was holding me. And I say that casually because again, it's been 5 years since I've seen him. He's changed, I've changed. And so rationally, I knew this was my dad, but you're 8, right? And it's this man holding you and you're kind of shy. So I remember I woke up, I didn't want him to know I was awake, so I kept on pretending I was sleeping so I wouldn't have to deal with that kind of awkward moment. I remember mom running towards me and holding me and kissing, and so we went through all of that. But it wasn't necessarily natural, and that's not because, they made it feel unnatural to me. It was very genuine, but at the same time, it's been 4 and 5 years, right? At that time, they were living in Alliston, Ontario, and that's like a snow belt. So I remember stepping outside for the first time and just seeing snow. And then from there, we readjusted our lives and got reacquainted. And I think that in itself was a process for the family, right? Because, at the end of the day, we knew we were a family and we were meant to be together, and that's great. But at the same time, we've been apart for 4 years, right? Language is barrier, like the entire world was different to me. I wouldn't undo any of that. I think for us, it's character building. And it's made us who we are today. So I know I'm a stronger person today because of all that, and I think my siblings would all say the same. Let me just take 2 minutes talk about my grandma. My grandma was my rock. She was my world. While my parents left me in the care of my grandma and my aunt and uncle, my grandma's the one that really cared for me. She was this 4'6", tall woman, but man, oh man, was she tough. I learned a lot from her. One would think I had a rough life. It pales in comparison to what my grandma went through. You know, through it all, she was strong. She focused on her family and she took care of her own. She is my hero. I'm not sure if I would be here if it wasn't for my grandma. She's not with us anymore. I wanted to make sure that it's told what a remarkable woman she was. It's amazing what mom and dad, but I'll speak more to mom, the incredible love and sacrifice she made as a mother. I too am a mom of 2, and my daughter, when my book came out, is also 4. So I look at her now and I ask myself the same question: would I make the same decision as my mom would have? And the answer is no. I'm a very selfish mom. I can't leave my children. But that wasn't the right decision at that time, right? And so my mom had to overcome her, you know, selfishness as a mom and the need to have your child with you, to thinking about, is this the best decision for my 4-year-old child? I applaud her and I thank her for making the decision that she did.
At the same time, also, that all that wouldn't have happened had it not been for a country that allowed refugees and immigrants come in as well, right? So, you know, we have to be appreciative of Canada for opening the doors to, you know, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of refugees at that time, Vietnamese refugees who came over, and Canada, you know, open arms, open the doors up. And also kindness as a family. Like when Linh and my dad came over to Saskatoon, there was a family that I think ultimately sponsored you guys over, right? And, you know, opened the doors up to Linh and my dad to kind of get them on their feet. All this couldn't have happened without that piece of the puzzle. I had a patient who actually about a year ago who involved with helping the Syrian refugees accommodate to the life in Toronto, and there was a family that she was taking care of, and you know, I was treating her and she was telling me about how these kids, and they were about I think 12 to 14 years old, were having difficulty transitioning life into Toronto, the language barrier. And so what I do is I actually got a book, and I in the book I wrote a little note, and I kind of said, you know, just basically hang in there, you know, acclimatize, work hard, basically just work hard, you know, and I gave the book to her to give to the kids, you know, and they can kind of read where, you know, where we came from with the similarities in stories, and then kind of see where I'm at in my life, you know, in terms of my career, and they can see that, you know what, just through hard work, like I can get there. It's hard, it's not easy, right? You know, you just gotta kind of learn the language, get out there and take advantage of the resources, but bottom line, just work hard, you know. That's like my parents did. They worked hard, we worked hard, all of us worked hard as we grew up, but you know, we accomplished what we have because, you know, through hard work.
Take your destiny into your own hand. Your life is what you make of it, and so take accountability, take responsibility, work hard. Those are the secret ingredients to a successful life, right? Just continue to persevere and work towards what your dreams are. You know, very few things are handed to you on a silver platter. Tons of opportunities and resources to help you succeed, so just take advantage of it, acclimatize, hold on to your culture, but also embrace the new, right? And learn with that. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed their story. I know we were standing in the room while they were telling it and we were tearing up.
Oh, big time. Ugly cry.
Yeah.
It's like, it's unbelievable. And, you know, even just to hear them telling it, it doesn't even, I mean, they've probably told it a million times, but to live it and to think that kids, like little kids, went through this. It's just so sad.
Yeah, their strength is unbelievable.
But their family, I mean, their parents, the way they had to make hard decisions, and probably decisions that parents today probably wouldn't have the strength to make.
Yeah.
And I just think that their family is just such a great example of power and strength and support. So yeah, I'm just so proud of them all.
Yeah.
And both of them wrote books.
Yes, Tuan and Vanessa, they both wrote books that we have here. So this is Vanessa's book. It's called Too Young to Escape, A Vietnamese Girl Waits to be Reunited with Her Family. And it's written by Van Ho and Marsha Forchuk, Skrypuch. I'm sorry, I'm really bad at pronouncing things. So we'll have this link down below. It goes into further detail of her story.
And there's pictures at the back of the book, real pictures that they've actually had through their family through the years, and just amazing story. Incredible read and just a real tearjerker. You'll love it.
So then we have Tuan's book. It's called Adrift at Sea, A Vietnamese Boy's Story of Survival. And it's filled with some beautiful art by Brian Deines. So as you guys can see, it's beautifully done. So it illustrates the story that he's telling. So this is amazing as well. This will also be linked down below in the description.
A really great book, especially for for people who have gone through something like this.
Yes.
And, you know, for kids too, because more and more these days we're seeing children. I mean, I know coming to Canada, there's just so many people coming in the country that are fleeing other countries. This is such a good book when you just feel out of place and you're not really sure, you know, you're not seeing a lot of your culture around you. And I just think that this is such a great book.
Yes, for sure. They both are. So we'd like to thank Linh, Tuan, and Vanessa for telling their story. I know it's not always easy to do, especially in front of a ton of people, but I think they're going to help out a lot of people who hear it.
And just remember that this is just three of a much larger family who had a lot of people contributing to their story as well. And I know that they would want us to mention that.
Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you, Mom, for being here with me.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and we'll see you in our next video. Bye!
Bye.